Okay, today we are starting a new chapter, organic matter in soil. There is a chapter in your book you can read, which we have covered in the undergraduate course. We will cover part of that material, but we will cover much more in this lecture and the coming lecture. Undecayed or partially decomposed organic materials that enter the soil system, such as leaf litter, fallen trees, animal carcasses, and other detritus, are called organic residues. So the organic residues are not soil organic matter, not the humus. They are the residues that can be from plant or animal origin. The source of organic matter in this pool is still recognizable. That means when you look at it, you can tell this is a leaf, this is a limb, this is part of an animal. So you can recognize it, you can see what it is. Another pool of organic matter in soil is called humus or soil organic matter. If you remember in the undergraduate course, we said that humus and soil organic matter are synonyms. They mean the same thing. Whenever you say soil organic matter in soil chemistry, we mean humus only, not any other, no residues, no partially decomposed material. The word pool component, we will go through this again. We will use this term again a little later. Okay, soil organic matter consists of two groups of compounds, non-humic substances and humic substances. We also cover this in the undergraduates, but I will go over it quickly. You can read more details in it in your textbook. Organic substances that belong to chemically recognizable classes in biochemistry are non-humic substances. So they are part of what we know as biochemical compounds. We will name some of them. These substances include low molecular mass organic acids, carbohydrates, polysaccharides, amino sugars, amino acid, peptides, proteins, lipids, phospholipids, nucleic acid, and lignin. All of these and some others too, they all belong to recognizable biochemistry substances or compounds or materials. Non-humic substances are transitory in soil. Transitory, they don't last for a very long time because they are decomposed easily, so they don't last in the soil very much. As they are utilized as substrates by soil microorganisms and are ultimately decomposed to base inorganic components, CO2 and H2O. So these are decomposed by the soil organisms quickly, so they don't stay for very long, okay? And the microorganisms use them as food. When we say substrates, they really are food for them. They decompose them not for us, but they decompose them to utilize the energy in them and to get the nutrients they need to build their tissues. So they are eventually decomposed. The final products of decomposition of all soil organic materials is CO2 and H2O. Of course, energy is taken by the microorganisms. The humic substances, the degradative journey from a recognizable biochemical compound to CO2, organic carbon may become a component of a group of natural organic substances that are refractory or recalcitrant. Refractory or recalcitrant, the opposite of the transitory that we saw that don't persist. These compounds persist and stay for a long time in the soil. So the long journey of the compounds that we talked about, they are decomposed eventually and end up into CO2 and H2O. This organic carbon that's released may become a component of a group of natural organic substances that are very persistent in the soil and they stay for a long time. These could be in soil, sediment, and natural water. So they can be in, which we're interested mostly in, of course, the soils, but they can be also in sediments and natural waters, and do not fall into any discrete category of biochemistry. We cannot put them in any of the groups of compounds we just talked about, the recognizable compounds of biochemistry. These compounds are collectively known as humic substances. Together, they are called humic substances. Okay, what is the role of soil organic matter in the environment? Both humic and non-humic substances play important roles in the environment, affecting the biochemical, physical, and chemical properties of soil. Of course, the organic matter has extreme effect. Effect is the verb, effect is the noun when we say the effect of. So it has a great effect on the physical, chemical, and biochemical properties of soil. Soil organic matter is a reservoir of metabolic energy for soil microorganisms. So first, it's a reservoir, storage place for metabolic energy. So that means the soil organic matter is used by the soil microorganisms to obtain their energy from. When they decompose it, they obtain the energy they need for their metabolism from the soil organic matter. When mineralized by microbes, a source of macronutrients for plants. So the mineralization or decomposition of organic matter releases many macronutrients that are essential for plants. Among those, ammonium nitrate, these are the nitrogen ions, and then H2PO4 -1 and HPO4 2, these are the two main ions of phosphorus that are taken by plants, and then sulfate. Soil organic matter is intimately associated with soil minerals and is important for the maintenance of aggregate stability. So the soil organic matter does not exist on its own in the soil. It is intimately in very close contact with soil minerals, especially the silicate clay minerals and the oxides, and is important of the maintenance of aggregate stability. The structure of the soil has to form, and one of the best stabilizing components in the soil of the aggregates of soil structure is the soil organic matter. It's not only for stabilizer, actually for creating these aggregates, soil organic matter is very vital. Organic matter in soil also increases the water retention capacity and impacts the thermal properties of soil. Okay, these are all related concepts, simple, but think about it. So the organic matter in soil increases the water retention capacity. Why? It increases because the organic matter itself has very high water capacity. It holds lots of water, much more than the inorganic components. So the more organic matter you have in the soil, the higher the amount of moisture the soil will hold. And if the soil holds more moisture, that affects its thermal properties. That means how fast it increases in temperature or its temperature decreases in cool weather. So because you know that the water takes longer and higher energy for it to compare to the other materials on the surface of the earth to increase its temperature. So the more the water you have, it will affect the heating and cooling of the soil. That's what we mean by thermal properties of soil, how fast it heats and how fast or warms up and how fast it cools. Soil organic matter plays a significant role in buffering soil solution pH. Because it has very high CEC and lots of functional group, as we talk about, it is extremely important in buffering and resisting the change in the soil solution pH. Soil organic matter is responsible for a sizable fraction of the CEC of soil. Sizable, that means important, large fraction of the cationic change capacity of the soil. Again, why is that? Just like how it increases the water capacity, the water holding capacity of the soil, also soil organic matter or humus has very high CEC, higher than any of the inorganic components. So it contributes a lot to the cation exchange capacity of the soil. And in many soils, it can contribute up to 75–80% of its CEC. It enhances the dissolution of soil minerals because it has functional groups. We saw how it earlier, and we will see more, that how it can have protonation, deprotonation, and you can have OH functional groups. So this will affect the dissolution of the mineral compounds that are found in the soil. It complexes and chelates metal cations and retains non-ionic organic compounds, altering their efficacy or potential toxicity. So it complexes and chelates. Chelates, if you have heard about it before, they are complexes between metal ions and organic compounds to form like a ring structure. And these chelates, the property of those chelates, especially for plant nutrients and for fertility of the soil, is that they are stable and yet they are considered soluble. So the plants can still obtain these metal cations that are chelated. And if you're familiar with many chelate fertilizers, nowadays if you go and buy most of the micronutrients, the fertilizer of micronutrients, they will be in chelate form. In chelate form, that means they are complexes with organic compounds, so that when you add them to the soil, they do not change to oxide and hydroxide and become not available to the plant. Okay, so it also keeps non-ionic organic compounds, altering their efficacy or potential toxicity. So if it retains them, if it holds them, if it complexes with them, that means it reduces the potential toxicity of them also. Okay, despite the substantial influence affected by or influenced by soil organic matter on soil properties, the concentrations of soil organic carbon, SOC, remember, is SOM, soil organic matter, SOC, soil organic carbon, and mineral surface soil on average do not exceed 60 grams per kilogram, or in the old ways that people talk about, usually 6%. If you talk about percent, you say 6%. The SI system, we say 60 grams per kilogram. They are the same numbers. If you want to obtain the soil organic matter as a value, you can obtain it from the soil organic carbon by multiplying by 1.72. And if you remember in the undergraduate, I explained why we have this number. Where does it come from? Look it up, think about it, okay? I'm not gonna tell you how in this lecture. You should be able to find out why do we multiply soil organic carbon by 1.72 to obtain the soil organic matter. If you have problems later, you can ask me, but try to find out yourself why. Where does this number come from? It's logical and simple. If you remember it, we talked about it, especially when we talked about the ones whom I taught the laboratory of chemical and chemistry and fertility, the one I used to teach. The organic carbon content of surface soils is highly variable and influenced by the soil forming factors of climate, biota, which is vegetation and soil organisms, topography, and parent material operating over time. So how much we have organic carbon or organic material, we know that they are related to each other. How much we have in the surface soil in any area it's very variable, and it depends mainly on the soil forming factor. What makes, say, one area, Jordan, is different from other parts in the United States or Europe or Africa or anywhere? It's these soil forming factors. And the major ones are the climate and biota, the type of vegetation we have. Climate, of course, how much rainfall and what's the temperature that you have in that area. And then, of course, the vegetation, which is really based on that. The climate affects what kind of vegetation you have. And of course, these affect the amount of residues that will fall in the soil eventually, and will affect how much you will have soil organic matter in the soil. And of course, these are all related to topography. If you're from one place to another, you can have changes and differences due to topography, the parent material that the soil was formed from. All of these factors, they have to operate over time, which is one of the soil forming factors, because time is the factor that all of these factors work over a certain period of time. Of course, the younger the soil, the less things, especially organic matter and other things, it will have. The longer it has been under these different factors for longer period of time, you can have more content of organic matter in them. Okay, this is extremely important to think about how much and how important the soil organic carbon relative to other carbon pools in the globe. Despite the relatively low concentrations of soil organic carbon in mineral soils compared to inorganic components, this pool of carbon, remember we told you a while ago, pool is compartment, section, portion of carbon, is an important component of the global sea budget and cycle. We will look at some number and you will see what we mean by this statement. World soils contain 1576 Pg. In your book and learn in the SI system, what is P? How do we say it? Okay, I'm not gonna pronounce it for you. I will say Pg. The Pg is 10 to the 15 gram. In the new SI system, this is the unit that's used mostly for carbon and for many other things, especially for the carbon content in the different pools. It used to be the metric ton. The metric ton is 1,000 kilogram. So you can find out the PG, how many really tons is this? 10 to the 15 gram, you can change it to tons easily. Okay, so world soil contains 1576 Pg of soil organic carbon to a depth of 1 meter, while soils contain an estimated 1738, much higher than the 1576 Pg of inorganic carbon. And what form of the inorganic carbon? Usually it's in the form of carbonates, calcium carbonates, magnesium carbonates, or mixture dolomites. The estimated size of the global soil organic carbon pool is more than twice the estimated size of the atmospheric sea pool, which is 750 Pg. So you can imagine, if you ask a regular person, would they ever think that you can have in the soil carbon which is more than twice what is found in the atmosphere above the earth? So more than twice, and approximately 3 times the organic carbon estimated to occur in vegetation biomass. In all the forests in the world, all the vegetation that's on the earth, the soil carbon is about 3 times of that. So again, you can see how important the soil organic carbon compared to the global carbon pools in the world. The ocean and geologic carbon reservoirs contain the greatest quantities of carbon, which is 38,065.5 times 10 to the 6 P of gram of carbon, huge amounts. But of course, this ocean and geologic carbon reservoirs, are not important to us for our life. They are not important. They don't affect really what's going on the earth. So that's why, although they are huge amounts, they are not the ones we're interested in to change what's happening on the earth. Okay, some of the most important characteristics of the organic material that makes it so important is its functional group. So the organic functional groups that are found in the soil organic matter. The chemical reactivity of soil organic matter is directly related to the quantities and types of organic functional groups and structural components that are present. So how reactive, how important, how much it reacts with the inorganic and with organic, it will be dictated by how many the types and how many of those functional groups. We will study the different types in a minute. Reactivity of organic functional groups and the hydrophilic and hydrophobic. You understand the hydrophilic. Hydrophilic, that means like water liking, and hydrophobic is related to organic, non-water, they don't dissolve in water. Character of various organic structural components control the ability of soil organic matter too. So the reactivity of these functional groups that the soil organic matter has will affect and control. It affects the ability of the soil organic to function in many different ways. What are some of these? Form bonds with the reactive surface functional groups of soil minerals. How it reacts. Remember we said it's in close and intimate contact with the soil minerals. This is how, because they attach to each other through functional groups. Complex inorganic and organic solute. It forms complexes. Complex, this is a verb. Complex inorganic and organic solute. It complexes, it makes complexes and complexation process with the inorganic and organic solutes that are in soil solution. Partition. Partition is in the organic sense, we talk as if we talk about dissolution in the aqueous system. Partition, part of it will be attached, so like it's separated from the rest in the organic, another organic part. So partition. Okay, absorb hydrophobic organic solutes. Of course, partitioning will happen only between organic. So they absorb the hydrophobic organic parts, organic solutes. Structurally rearrange as dictated by the chemical conditions of the soil environment. So these functional group will change or affect the ability of soil organic matter to structurally rearrange, form different compounds by rearranging its structure. In chemistry, in organic chemistry, this is a common thing, and I think most of you studied some organic chemistry, so it should be something familiar to you. We're not going to go in details of these, but it's good to know about them. Humic and non-humic substances are polyfunctional in that they contain a variety of organic functional groups on a carbon backbone structure. So whether they're humic or non-humic, they are polyfunctional. That means they contain more than one function. Poly, many functions, in that they contain a variety of organic functional groups. And the backbone, the structure, of course, of all organic compounds is around the carbon atom. The carbon atom is the backbone of any organic structure. Okay, we'll talk about the types of the functional groups we were mentioning so far. What are the major types? Okay, the vast majority of soil organic matter functional groups contain oxygen. Most of them, somehow, somewhere, there is oxygen in that functional group. They could be neutral, they do not ionize, but could be polar. They could be acidic, develop negative charge through proton dissociation, and basic, develop positive charge through proton complexation. So we will see some examples of those different types. Now, these two diagrams, this one and the next one, it gives you all the possible functional groups. I'm not going to go through them. Each one of them has a name, and look at the structure. And I'm sure, like I said, if you have taken organic chemistry, you would know what all this means, but each one of them with the structure next to it. So we're not going to go through them. And this is the second sheet and of the groups of the functional groups. Again, so many of them, and each one of them, the name and the structure to the right. Okay, we'll talk first about the neutral soil organic matter functional groups. Remember, these are the ones that do not ionize. They do not give you positive or negative charges. These include the carbonyl, found in carbonyl group, which can be found in the esters, ketones, aldehydes, and anhydrides. So these are all carbonyls, different types of carbonyls. Then we have the aliphatic OH. Aliphatic means chain. So this is the alcoholic OH, like CH2OH, CH3OH, CH3, CH4, so on. The aliphatic and aromatic ether. You can look back on the sheets we just saw with all the structure of them, and you can see how is the ether and all the carbonyl and all of them. The quinone, which is the aromatic carbonyl. The acidic soil organic matter functional groups, these include the carboxyl, aliphatic or aromatic carbon structure. You've seen this, I'm sure, before. RCOH, when zero, no charge. If it dissociates, loses its proton, its hydrogen, then it has negative charge. Then the phenolic OH. Phenolic, it's connected to a ring. This is aliphatic chain. This is connected to a ring, benzene ring. Sorry. So again, it loses its proton, gives you a proton, and becomes negative. Then the enol. Okay, again, look back, you see how the enols, and the same thing happens. It loses its proton and gives you a negative charge. Okay, the last of those is the basic soil organic matter functional groups. They are principally those that contain nitrogen. Whenever you talk about basic functional groups in soil organic matter, generally there will be a nitrogen in that group. They are principally those that contain nitrogen. They include the amino group, NH2 or NH2. So it takes hydrogen to give you NH3+. The amide, okay, oxygen, CO, oxygen, NH2. Okay, again, takes hydrogen to give you NH3+. The imine, some people say imine, sorry. Okay, again, you have double bond, carbon with the nitrogen. Okay, and so it takes the hydrogen and becomes positive. Then we have the aromatic ring nitrogen, such as found in pyridine. Pyridine is a ring and with nitrogen attached to it. So you have, again, protonation, takes proton and it becomes positive. We will stop here, and I think there will be another lecture. Maybe we will cover the soil organic matter. We will stop today here.